pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm sorry, could everyone just remain standing for a moment? I would like to have a moment of silence for the officers, Officer Alex Hamzy, Sergeant Dustin DeMonte, and injured Officer Alex Arado, who recently there was a video released from his body cam because the Inspector General wanted to make sure his actions that evening were justified. And if anybody's had a chance to view it, it shows an incredible act of courage and bravery on behalf of this 26-year-old officer who did take out the suspect who shot the other two officers. So if we could just have a moment of silence for those officers and for the Bristol Police Department. Thank you. Okay. So item number 3 is to hear, and can I get a motion to hear and consider and act upon the minutes of October 3rd, 2022?
So moved.
Seconded.
Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 4 is just for resignation, information purposes. Scott Craighead is resigning from the Bike and Pedestrian Committee. And I just want to thank Craig for his service and time on that committee. Oh, come on in. And item number 5.
I'd just like to echo my thanks for
sure.
Scott Craighead, if I may, and just, it's such a significant and active group, and I appreciate all the work and effort and energy that goes into serving on this committee in particular. So thank you to Mr. Craighead. Best of luck on his next endeavor.
Item number 5, can I get a motion to approve Jay Behan to serve on the Bike and Ped Committee, whose term will run to November 2024?
I'll make a motion to approve, and then would like some discussion.
I'll second it.
Okay, I'll open it up to the board.
I would like to, for the record, state that I'm going to be abstaining from this vote. I did have a very brief chance to speak to the candidate and want to thank Mr. Behan for throwing his hat into the ring. I don't know this gentleman, but I did have a chance to speak to the chairman of this committee, and so my abstaining really speaks to a bigger issue of frustration that I have around the appointment process. I do wish Mr. Behan well on what I assume will be his appointment, but the chair of this particular committee was not consulted in terms of her, where the committee sits and what the makeup of it should be, and we talked a lot about the nature of these committees and making it a team. So for that reason, I'm going to abstain today and just, again, express my frustration and concern around the process. And that being said, I just want to echo that this is not about the candidate that is being put before us. It's really for me about the process. So thank you.
So I don't know Mr. Behan either. And as I have pointed out in the past, I have opened up our process for allowing people to sign up for boards and commission through my newsletter, which has never been done in the history of the town of Fairfield. We have received an extraordinary response from average everyday citizens who have expressed an interest in serving on our boards and commissions, which have over 300 members. And I don't think the average person in our town understands how much work this actually is for Jennifer. in my office, which she has a very full plate, as it is posting agendas and room reservations for boards and commissions and a whole host of other things besides her average everyday work for the town. So there's a lot of appointments that come through. I'm sorry that the Bike and Commit chairwoman did not reach out to me at all with any recommendations for the vacancy. If she had, I'd be more than happy to listen. I'm always open to listening to anybody's recommendations, especially from specific department heads or chair people. I do know that the chairwoman is stepping down, I believe, this month, the end of this month. So again, this is not something that is done in any malicious way. No one's trying to usurp anyone. This person had an interest. We get a lot of these applications, especially since I send this newsletter out, and I think it's been really helpful to have just people who have an experience in certain fields to fill out the form and be considered. So at any rate, I just wanted to make that comment, and I look forward to meeting. I don't know if Jay is here. Hi, Jay. Well, it's nice to meet you.
And could I respond to what you just said? And I appreciate it. To me, it highlights just the need for us to really look through the charter process, through being open about, because it is so much work and because there are so many qualified candidates across the community. To me, it just highlights the need for reevaluating and looking at how that process is taken on. So I appreciate how much Jennifer does do, but I also think that there are ways in which we could talk about involving not only the minority selectmen, but the chairs, et cetera. So I just wanted to acknowledge that I appreciate how much work does go into this. Thank you.
And I know Jennifer did reach out to the chair of the Bike and Ped Committee, and she didn't have any issue with the appointment. So I don't know what else we could do specifically besides ask for feedback or share potential people who are going to be appointed. And if the chairwoman had an issue, she could have simply written back to Jennifer and said so. I'm sorry?
Were we all unmuted this whole time?
This
No,
one?
no, the conference line, is that red or green?
It's red.
Can you please unmute, I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry. And now we have
Gonna turn,
What if,
Houston. We unmute it.
or muted? It's green now, Jerry.
yeah, but we're feeding back.
Right, but they couldn't hear, I got a text from Jennifer that said nobody. Here now. Through FairTV.
It's okay now.
Okay now.
Thank you.
Is the echo?
Who said room?
There's still
Oh,
echo.
that's me. I don't know why I have.
Can you shut your mute off there?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right.
So good we don't hear it twice.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, first of all, Mr. Behan, thank you for your putting in your application and agreeing to serve. You look familiar to me. I don't know that we're acquainted, but it's nice to meet you, and is that your daughter you brought with you today? Yeah, congratulations, and it's a big deal to serve to the town. One of the things I do like about the process is the fact that we do get new blood to serve in the town committees, and I think that's very important. We don't just recycle the same points of views all the time. I also noticed your background in investments and accounting, and I appreciate the diligence and the thought that has to go into that and the level of detail that is required in your job. So thank you, and I wish you the best of luck on the committee. And I don't know, Madam First Selectwoman, if you want to give the opportunity to speak.
No, Jay, we always say if anybody comes, if you want to step up, if you don't want to, you don't have to. Please don't feel like I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, I would just say, could you use it?
You can come up there.
I just wanted to come up and say, thank you for considering me. If appointed, I'll do my best. I'm vested in Fairfield. As you see, I have my daughter goes to Stratfield. I'm involved in girls softball, Little League,
Oh, nice.
and I'm looking forward to the challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. And just so you know, our Department of Public Works our engineering department and our law enforcement work very closely with the committee. And we had a very good meeting about, I'd say, a month or more ago with the entire committee and myself and our engineering department, our law enforcement, and our DPW director, talking about a lot of their priorities and ways in which our town are trying to address specific items on the list. So we welcome you aboard.
Great, thank you.
And I would love to say to you, Mr. Bean, good luck. It's a great committee, and it's wonderful that you brought your daughter so she can see your involvement, and I think that's really important, and appreciate it. I know you have a great background for it. So again, I just want to echo that my abstention today is not about what I know you will bring to the table and serve dutifully and diligently. It's for me more about a process that goes on here. So thank you very much for stepping in.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Jay. And what's your daughter's name?
Sophia.
Hi, Sophia. Welcome to your first town meeting. Hopefully it'll be your last.
I second that,
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
and I abstain.
The motion carries two and one abstention.
Congratulations.
And, well, actually, thank you. I always say to anybody being for appointment, you're free to stay or you're welcome to leave, whatever you like to do.
I want to hang out just a little bit
Oh,
longer.
no, you can do. Most people are like, bye. So, okay. Our next item is item number 6. Can I get a motion to hear and consider and authorize the purchasing authority to enter into a proposed contract with JLY Enterprises, LLC, construction managers to provide all labor, materials, equipment, and all necessary for the replacement of the elevator at Fairfield Woods Middle School, as detailed in the bid number in the agenda, in the amount not to exceed $220,680, with additional authority to execute change orders to said contract in the amount not to exceed $2268, for a combined grand total not to exceed $242,748. This would be capital outlay 20-year bond. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and we have Gerald Foley and Sal Morbido here with us and Dr. Tracy. And we also have Jim Baldwin on the line to answer any questions, should there be any. Gerald, can you briefly?
Yes, so the matter before you is the replacement of the elevator at Fairfield Woods Middle School. The elevator's been problematic for years, so this is basically to upgrade and get a new replacement elevator that's more reliable for the students.
How old is the current elevator?
That I try to look up, I don't know if you recall, Sal, I think it's original to the school.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe it was, there was a modernization probably in the 90s, but it's original to that Bradley wing of the building.
In other words, we got our money out of it.
Yes, yes, yes.
Can I continue?
Sure, go right ahead.
I noticed that there's 2 accounts here referenced in the funding of this. Why is that? What's going on here with the funding of this?
There was a discussion with the winning contractor about replacing the piston, instead of refurbishing the piston, replacing it for better longevity. So we made up the difference. It was more than the capital account that we had. So we took some maintenance money to make up the deficit.
So the amount in the capital outlay was the 220.
Correct.
And when you decided to add the piston in, you're taking it out of the maintenance account. And
Correct.
the 220 is in the original budget, that's been approved.
That is correct.
Okay, how much is left in the maintenance account? Is this going to hamstring the maintenance account?
It won't hamstring. I don't have the exact number, but it won't. We'll be fine with that.
Can I jump in with a question?
Sure, go right ahead.
What happens with the accessibility issue when the elevator's not in use? Is there a way around that?
There is it's going out the main door, physically walking around the building. If it was somebody in a wheelchair, actually taking somebody all the way around the building and taking them into the exterior exit of the team room. on the lower level. So it's difficult to do that.
And crutches even, on a more temporary.
Yeah, even crutches, if you were on that end of the building, there's half a flight of stairs to get to the exterior grade. So it's not a good arrangement.
Is there anything that can be done, even if it's a small expense, to help offset that a little bit? Like a temporary ramp, or, I don't know, I'm just.
No, there's not a place for a
big-
ramp because there's too much grade change.
Oh, it is, yeah. Okay.
Mr. Foley, did this go through the regular bid process here?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Yes.
No issues with this process? Competitive bids?
Yep, we had 2 bids for the project, and the one before you was the lowest responsible bidder.
Okay. Mr. Baldwin, I know you're on the phone. Any issues that we should be aware of with this contract or the awarding of this?
I have no issues with the contract, since we've since taken care of one very minor technicality, but it's all set.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin.
You're welcome.
I have nothing further on this.
Any additional?
Nothing additional.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, if there's no further questions on this item, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item number 7 is this,
Can I make a
Waive
motion
the
to waive the reading?
yes. Second? All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
So this item, I do need a motion to consider an act to approve a resolution recommended by the Board of Education. This is regarding grants. We talked a bit about this at our last meeting in that process for other schools, and this one is regarding Ward High School's FITS replacement project at Ward High School. And I'll hand it over to you, Sal.
As I explained on the last meeting, we're getting new information from the state as to applying for the HVAC grant fund. This is a more shovel-ready, even though there won't be a shovel up there, shovel-ready project.
Yep.
That kind of sounds like they'll be more favorable to giving a grant. So these three resolutions are needed as part of the grant application process. We have a very tight grant application process for this money. We have to be in December 1st by 8 p.m. at night with everything they need, and this is one of the items, the 3 resolutions.
So it's basically similar to what the other
Very-
items,
yeah,
just
it's
so we
exact-
have our ducks in a row going
Correct.
into the application process.
We recently approved, the Board of Ed approved at their last meeting, the educational specification for the project. These are the 3 resolutions we need from Board of Selectmen and RTM. And upon approval of this, we understand will be on the RTM agenda also. So we'll meet our timelines.
And can we
Thank
approve
you.
it as, I'm sorry. It's okay. Sure. Can we approve as one
Yeah, the
omnibus
3
thing, or do you need 3 separate?
No, you don't need 3 motions. It's whereas, additional where.
Okay.
Yep, the whole resolution.
I have no further questions or issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional questions from the board?
Nope.
Any comments from the public?
I'm all set.
So we didn't actually make a motion on it, so I'm going to ask for a motion to approve this item number 7.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Item number 8. Can I get a motion to hear and consider and adopt a bond resolution amending and restating a resolution entitled Resolution Appropriating $3,717,899 for the cost of certain non-reoccurring capital projects, authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriations to increase that appropriation for bond authorization by $100,000.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so this item is going to actually be on the Board of Finance's agenda tomorrow night. So Anthony, he's up already.
Ready.
This is actually a simple problem that I think we will be seeing in towns, and we're seeing across the state, that everything is going up. Inflation is having a huge impact on things that we originally went out to bid for, and they're just costing more. And so Anthony came to me and said, I really want to get this done quickly because he wants to get this contract secured so it doesn't go up even more. And so I'll hand it over to you, Anthony.
Can I ask you a question?
You may.
Because maybe it'll shape the presentation, if that's okay. When we approve this, is it similar to other approvals through this body that we've seen recently, where we're just approving the amount and then the Board of Finance is voting on the specifics, or is it not work that way?
So let me start with good afternoon. Anthony Calivers, Director of Parks and Recreation. You guys have all gotten the dog and pony show on this project
Yeah,
already.
we already have.
All three boards, RTM, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance. What happened here was you guys all approved the $100,000 for the project. We had asked for quotes from a couple different vendors originally to kind of get the ballpark for that $100,000. Which again went through the whole process of we're going to try to replace retrofit the tennis center lights. What happened was when we worked with purchasing and actually got the verbiage to put this out on the street, the economy has changed, climate's changed, supply chain has changed, and through the competitive bid process, what we have now is two bids that are within $10,000 of each other. And we'd like to move forward with this, but yeah, the price tag has doubled, which is a scary thought, but again, I think as the first selectwoman alluded to, I think we're going to have this problem across the board, as you're going to be seeing most likely from other departments as well. But nothing has changed in the specifics of the project.
Thank you for clarifying.
You're
And
welcome.
hello.
Sure, Tom, go ahead.
Jared, what are we seeing from other projects now that this is going on? I mean, this is rather dramatic. I mean, there's inflation, but this is 100% inflation.
So it's funny you should ask, because the next item on the agenda will be seeking additional funding as well. And so there, we are seeing that I think that the trend is mostly, with the exception of Anthony's playgrounds, most of the projects that are at least in the ARPA list are increasing. And so, yeah, I think we'll probably continue to see prices going up for these.
So how much is left of the ARPA funding, or are we getting above the original ARPA funding, and therefore, if we approve this, we start to go into more direct tax dollars to our taxpayers?
This particular item is not an ARPA item. This was part of our non-recurring agenda. The next one that I talk about will be an ARPA one that, and I can talk more about those. But this particular one, like I said, was a non-recurring bonding, and we're just looking to increase the authorization by $100,000.
See, I think what we need to do is we need to put together a more fulsome look based on what you're saying and say, here's what the list of projects were. This is what was approved or what had been planned on. This is based on best available information, so that we know what that delta is, particularly whether we're going to run out of the ARPA funds for some of these projects, and secondly, whether we need to relook at or reprioritize what projects are going to be taken on. And I say that because as the town's dealing with the inflation, we need to be cognizant that the taxpayers are as well. And we can't just say, oh, okay, it went up, but we like the project, let's do it. Much like the taxpayers, or we have to do with our own grocery bills. We're not having steak this week, right?
Right.
I think we need to do that with the project. So I think we need to get a look at, what we're looking at here.
And we'll continue to report on that as things come up and anticipate as we can. But with regard to the ARPA stuff, I'll wait till the next item, and we can talk more about that item and about ARPA in general.
Yeah, but what I'm asking, I agree, but what I'm asking is let's be proactive, and even if you're not hearing about these things coming up, go and talk to the department heads and see what they're hearing and see what they're seeing, because if we've got some difficult decisions to make of putting some things off because of this, we need to know it sooner rather than later. That's the way I'd say it. Because I feel uncomfortable approving things without knowing that something else is going up as well.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Chair.
But
So I just want to chime in that you're aware that we have the working group, the capital working group, and we just had a meeting last week. We had quite a few meetings, and we will continue to have them. So we did an update on the ARPA projects, and Jared continues, and obviously we meet with department heads all the time. We're constantly seeing each other in the building, talking, and updates are getting, as we move forward with the full year, the year that we will all be voting on each and every year, and the non-reoccurring list. Obviously, we're going to be going back to our vendors, updating RFPs, making sure that we have the numbers correctly and that if that fits in line. Now, obviously, if items come up that are really outrageously expensive and that are blown through the budget by an extreme amount, we have to go back and look at it. My administration will go back and look at our priorities and see if we need to shuffle that deck a bit. Some of these items, as you know, our capital list is long. Our needs are a lot. And so we do have to prioritize. And hopefully this working group, and those meetings are on FairTV for anybody who wants to take a look at them. And hopefully we get updated numbers and things, and we make decisions based on inflationary numbers and how they're impacting our overall capital plan.
Yeah, what concerns me here is going from 100 to 200.
Yeah, I get you. I hear you.
It's
a lot.
What's going to be on the next one? Right. I'm sorry, Nancy.
Yeah, no, and I'm piggybacking on that to say it is concerning. It's the reality of the time we're living in, the times we're living in. It may be helpful to hear why then, and trusting the process and that you are evaluating and constantly looking and reprioritizing as it may have to be. Is there a sentence or a line here today which would be reassuring in terms of, even though we've gone through this process of approving and seeing, but something that you could reiterate today, just that speaks to what Mr. Flynn is saying here, why this is so important today and why we're being asked to take this 50 or 100% increase?
Sure.
Yeah. I support it. I'm just saying, I think for the public to hear.
To quote the president, but in a much better way, 2 words: deferred maintenance. And that's really all this comes down to. These lights were put in 1989, and nothing has happened to them since. They look like lights from 1989. We have to repair them like they're lights from 1989. We have significant glare spillover from these lights. Going into LED lights, which is obviously all the rage right now, we're going to reduce that spillage essentially to the fact where you walk off those courts and it's dark. Where you can't see. So the light is pointed where the light should be. This meets the RTM's requirement of our dark sky initiative, which we currently don't meet with any of our lights around sports fields, athletic fields, and courts. So this is a good step for us. And again, putting this off another year, 2 years, 3 years, eventually the lights are going to die. I mean, they're almost 30-something years old here.
I was leading the witness. It's good to hear all this because I think the public needs this. Good to hear.
Yeah, and if I was concerned, obviously I'm very concerned about the increase in price, but if I would be more concerned if we had one that was 100,000 over and another one that was under. The fact that we have 2 competitive bids bidding the same product and they're within $10,000 of each other, to me shows that that's what the market is right now. So I'm comfortable with their bids.
My concern isn't the quality of the bids or even the necessity of the lights. I mean, we've already approved it. In theory, my concern is if we're spending $200,000 for lights, what else doesn't get done? Because we can't afford $200,000 for lights and $500,000 for something else. I'm just looking at it all costing more.
I agree. And that's why you guys get paid the big bucks to sit here and make that decision.
Well, what I want to ask you is, you've got a limited pot of funds. So you've just come to us and said, I thought I needed 100 through nobody's fault. It's 200. what else are you looking for, and do we know the costs on those, and have they gone up? Or are you going to come here next month and say, it's another $200,000 on this one?
Yeah.
At which point I got to say, well, wish we didn't do the lights.
Yep. And I wish I had an answer for you, but if I did, I probably wouldn't be standing here in this position right now. We have a lot of projects out there. We just did, I think, 17 projects that you guys approved from last year through, whether they were through the non-capital recurring capital
Right.
or the ARPA fund. So as Jared had pointed out, all the playgrounds were done, right? I had those buttoned
Right.
up, shovel ready. We hit the ground running. Some of the, I think all of them came in under budget. So there were some funds saved there. However, the big the big elephant in the room for me is going to be the turf field at Ludlow Middle School.
And we don't know the answer on
Right?
that yet.
No, we have 4.125 million. That is waiting to go out to bid. It's in the queue to hit the street, to be out on the street for an RFP. So, I mean, if that comes in at 6 million, 5 million, 4.5 million, we've got some decisions to make. I should say you guys have some decisions to make, because all I can do is tell you this is what we need. You guys are going to have to decide between you, Board of Finance, and the RTM on what we can afford as a town.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't come here and say, yeah, let's defer this. I mean,
No, that's
not my role.
That's
This is what we need.
Where's Mr. Foley? Is he here? What are you seeing on bids? If you could come up to the mic, if you don't mind. Yeah, I would like, not just this one, but more globally. I need the context here.
Well, yeah, they're definitely coming in higher. So this particular bid, well, we had a few things. So one, we had the original budget of the 100,000. Through our scope review, it looked like what happened was there was an issue with how the contractors originally developed their budgets. So we don't think they included all the, so as Anthony was alluding to, they included less, basically the cost of the lighting, but not so much, for lack of a better term, like upgrades. So what you have before you is you have replacing the lights, but we also have replacing the wiring. So what's happened is that this particular facility, the way that they were wired in 1989, has been very problematic. So what we're doing with this project is we're rewiring the lighting so that it's like.
So it's not all inflation, it's also a different scope.
Right, so there's a different scope, but there is definitely inflation, but it's definitely not all, in this particular project, it's not all inflation.
And what are you seeing on other projects in terms of percentage
It
inflation?
depends. The one that's going to come up for you next is really an eye-opening one. That one, we're 700,000 off of the original budget. So that was huge. But it also has to do with when the estimator pulled together their numbers. And unfortunately, the way the process is, you have someone who's going to go basically cost estimating, and they've done cost estimating 2 years ago. Well, so when you take that, normally it was like 3 to 5% per year for the costs. This year, you're probably looking at almost 20%. So as you go through year to year to year, the cost of these projects is just like going through the roof.
Yeah.
So this year and next year will probably be the biggest, you're seeing it in the cost of inflation. But, so anything you defer, it's not going to necessarily save you money. It's going to cost you more later on.
Well, it also depends on what happens in future years.
Yeah,
with
but it's
inflation
like,
and cost of money.
it's possible that you'll get some things that go down,
Yes,
but
it
more
is.
than likely that you'll probably see increases.
Materials maybe, not necessarily labor.
Right.
What about, so I'm going to go back to you, Mr. Calabrese. Thank you, Mr. Foley. Appreciate the context. So you're right. It's our job to decide whether we can afford it or not. It's not your responsibility. But you're coming to us and asking for $100,000 more for this. What happens if the next one we come? I just want to get a sense of your priorities. Is this a priority for you?
This is a priority for us.
Okay. So you would put this above the others. If something has to be trimmed back later, you're going to say, hey, I know it's all deferred maintenance, but this is a priority.
Yeah, and that's why this was in the non-recurring capital.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have anything else.
All right, thank you, Anthony. I mean, obviously, we are going to be carefully, it's a collaborative effort, the administration with our department heads as we review things going forward, and we make decisions on, are you sneaking out? Just teasing you.
Apparently not effectively.
I told you. Well, have a good night. It was nice to meet you. Obviously, this is something we're going to be keeping a close eye on because it's going to impact a whole bunch of things. Not just capital projects, but it's also going to be impacting our operating and anything else we do. So thank you, Anthony. If there's no further discussion from the board, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right. Our next item is item number 10.
9?
I'm sorry, you're right. 9. Amended version. Okay, so I handed out an amended version. Jennifer, I think, attached the wrong resolution to the backup. So this is and Jared's up there.
There was one on the table and one that you just handed me.
Right, the one Jennifer, I just handed, Jennifer brought down is the appropriate one, Jared?
Yes, the one that Jennifer brought down.
Okay,
That's the right one.
so this is a motion to hear and consider and adopt a resolution entitled appropriating 24,800 for the costs related to basically the ARPA coronavirus local recovery fund to reduce the appropriation to 22,640 and revise certain uses of the fund reflected in the attached Exhibit A. So, so just to kind of give you an update before I hand it over to Jared, this is exactly what we're talking about, and this is something the working group has been grappling with as well. So we did an update on the ARPA funds, and it was, we talked about some of our playgrounds came out under a little. We also, the approval of the stage at Fairfield Museum behind us here was not approved by the town bodies. That funding was sitting in the ARPA sort of big fund. There's also an issue with the fiber optic that's coming quite considerably over what was originally done. And we're still talking about that. But regardless, the Four Corners project is a project that we're all aware of for a very long time in the Stratfield area. That's been going on for a long time. James, how long?
Going on almost 5 years now.
Okay, 5 years. And so we, put ARPA funds toward it, and we were really excited. And the Stratfield Neighborhood Association raised a considerable amount of money through fundraising efforts and community involvement to do this project. And when the initial bid came back, it was quite a bit more than we originally anticipated for the entire project. So we were going to scale the project back to just the corner and not go on with this sidewalk and the streetscape proposals that were included in that. But then we realized we had this extra money, and we thought, why don't we just move forward and finish this project and just be done with it instead of doing it piecemeal. And so that's the proposal before you today, and Jared is here to answer any financial sort of questions on it. And Mark is also, who's been, I want to also mention Mark Barnhart is here, who's been extraordinarily involved because he's involved with everything making our town more user-friendly, especially for our businesses and our community. And Stratfield's been waiting a long time for this beautification and connectivity project. And so
If I
everybody's here.
could I just give an overview of the ARPA money and this project, how it
Yes.
fits in and what the
Yes.
changes are?
Thank you, Jared.
Okay?
Changes between these two documents,
Yes.
if that's
Yeah.
relevant?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so so let's start with when when all the ARPA projects were adopted, the total amount that we anticipated getting was $24.8 million, and so that's what had been appropriated at the time. If you remember, at a point during the process, when it was going through the bodies, there was a project that was removed for $450,000, which was the performance stage at the museum. It was never officially changed in a resolution. So part of this, one piece of this resolution is to take that $450,000 to reflect the decision that had been made by all the boards, and to take that $450,000 out of as an allocation. So that's part of it. Another part of this is to unallocate the money that we had put in for the fiber optic project, which was to connect all the town buildings with our own fiber optic, because right now we lease a fiber optic line from a company, and so we had the thought of purchasing it and owning our own fiber optic line, and connecting all the town buildings, including the Board of Education. As Brenda mentioned, when we got the bid back, it was about $900,000 more than what we had put into the ARPA plan. And so what we're proposing to do here is to unallocate that $2.4 million for the fiber optic project. As an offset to that would be to those two decreases, the $450,000, which was done a while back last year when the ARPA projects were first proposed, taking that out and then taking the fiber optic out. That's offset by the increase that we'd like to fund for Stratfield Village and the Four Corners project, which is $700,000. So that's the increase. To your question, I believe we were working on a number of different documents. So I think what happened, the mistake that was made, was that an earlier version that we had gotten earlier in the week had been put into the backup. And so that document, I believe the document that you have does not reflect the fiber optic piece. And I think that's the difference between those two documents.
So very simply speaking, you're kind of reallocating, or the hope is to reallocate the fiber optic and this performance allocation, move it over to the beautification Stratfield Village. But it's not other than that, there's no straight math.
Yes and no. So a portion of it, the $700,000, is being reallocated to the Stratfield Village project. There's some of this that's just being deallocated. So you'll notice in the title of it that the dollar amount is going from 24.8 down to 22.64 that's the overall authorization to spend ARPA money. So part of that is that the fiber optic money is just being deallocated, and a portion of it is going to the $700,000.
Can I follow up on that?
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure,
Since
go
we're
ahead.
Sure, go right ahead.
tugging at a thread here. What does it mean to be on, then with that $2 million difference? Talk about that.
Yeah, so that's just unallocated ARPA money, and I think as things go on and as we see the cost of these things increasing, that we will, we'll hold on to that as a buffer at this point to see what happens with some of the other projects.
What's the timeline on that, Jared, that you have to hold that in abeyance, essentially?
The money has to be committed by December 2024 and actually spent by December 2026. So we have slightly over 2 years.
So go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you. And is it the same metric? So even if it's unallocated, the same sort of initial metric of how it's spent and how it's allocated when we applied for the ARPA funding, it still applies? So it doesn't become sort of like discretionary town spending money? Okay.
No, we have to follow all the same rules and everything, and we have to report on it to the federal government as we spend it on a quarterly basis. So all that stuff, that all still stands.
So in essence, it gives us like a freedom to come back and not $2 million to play with. I don't mean to be so glib, but $2 million that then becomes, to your point, buffer.
Right, and just like we're doing today with this money, we would have to come before all three boards if we want to, if we want to start going into that $2 million buffer, we're going to have to go to all three boards to get that authorization.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, so you've answered a lot of my questions there. Talk to me about the $700,000 operate. I'm very familiar with the Four Corners project, supportive of the project. Give me the rundown on what happened with the $700K.
You want to talk about that, Mark?
Go ahead, Mark.
Mark Barnhart's here. He can
It's
answer
Mark
some of
spending the money,
the
I understand.
project-specific questions.
For the record, Mark Barnhart, Director of Community Economic Development. If I say anything incorrect, Bill Hurley, the engineering manager, is here to correct me. You know, as was attested to by some members of the public, this is a project that is a long time in coming. I got involved in 2019 when we applied for and received a grant from the state of Connecticut under the Urban Act program that provides some funding towards both design and construction, $650,000. In addition to that, to secure that grant, the Village Association pledged to raise $150,000, which they have satisfied. So the balance was to come from town sources. $100,000 was from non-recurring capital, and then subsequently we allocated some, about $450,000 from ARPA dollars toward the project. As was indicated by Anthony Calabrese, you know, first of all, the estimate was prepared some time ago. There are some changes to our project scope that occurred as a result of permitting. We had a lot of back and forth with state DOT in terms of what they're expecting within the state right away, and they were insistent that we incorporate those provisions within our bid specs, which we did, in order to get an encroachment permit. That obviously had a cost implication. But beyond that, when we actually bid the project, the engineer had updated his estimate, but clearly did not fully anticipate the impact of a lot of things in terms of cost. Again, as Mr. Calabrese had indicated, when we bid the project, we have 3 responsible bidders with whom we've done work in the past. They've done fine work for us. We have no problem with the quality of their effort, and we think that they're responsive bids. They're all fairly bunched together, so we think, again, this reflects the market realities that we're in, but it's $650,000 more than what we had anticipated. We went through a process with the apparent low bidder to revise the scope to see what that potentially would save, and we skinnied the project up to the most that we could while preserving the integrity of what we were undertaking in the first place. So we eliminated pretty much every 4.5 of the 5 or 6 sheets of design plans, and we were saving roughly $360,000 to $400,000. And at that point, we were still short. We would still have to come before this board and ask for $150,000, $200,000 to make up the difference. And at that point, the conversation was, which way would you prefer to do? Would you prefer that we ask for some additional money to do a very small, skinnied up project and leave unrealized, given the fact that this has been a long-standing issue? Or do we have an opportunity to just do the project right as originally planned and intended? And so we think, you know, there's a fairly modest increase or savings beyond that, and we thought it would be worthwhile at least to present the full as-designed option as was intended by the parties when we started this project. But that's it in a nutshell. You know, it's a combination of factors, part of which is a result of permitting, part of which is, you know, we're just in a different cost environment than what we anticipated at first.
How much of it is permitting?
Well,
Rough.
Bill, do you have a guess?
How much increase?
Yeah. You might have a better feel for that, mast arm poles and the like.
Yeah, give us a little sense of what it was.
Yeah, my quick estimate would be about $200,000. The state requires, you know, concrete, full-depth concrete curbing rather than extruded. We had a bulb out. They only accept or approve certain types of crosswalks that we were looking for a little bit more than just white lines. And even there, they require them to be epoxied, not just painted. And then there's always drainage. We had to do drainage analysis, and we have to change a couple of catch basins to make sure that we have the proper drainage flow to those basins. So that, and then as Mark said too, is the pedestrian. When you do the push buttons, you have to go through that analysis, and then you have to meet all their latest and greatest and revise the traffic signal based on the new push buttons that would be put in.
Are they kicking in any money for this?
Besides the 650?
Yeah, I was just going to say the 650 state bond.
So they give and they take us.
Yeah.
So they give you 650, but you have to comply with their requirements. You know, it starts with when you get the $650,000 grant, they take $2,500 off the top to hire an attorney to draft the contract documents that you execute with the town. So that comes out of the grant. So it starts early, but you know there was a fairly rigorous review process. We went through several different design iterations. That was part of the delay. Another part of the delay that we had was, in addition to COVID, we had a minor encroachment issue that we had to resolve. We had a property that was within the state right of way, and we either had to have the property owner enter into a lease agreement with the state or revise our plans to reflect that it was outside of the state highway right of way. So a number of those changes added to the time delay and eventually the cost.
And just so we go on the record, what were the elements that you looked at saying, what if we don't do this, what if we don't do that?
Pretty much anything outside of the actual four corners themselves. Heading, you know, our project scope extends north to Owen Fish, replacing sidewalks there, replacing sidewalks up Fairfield Woods, south.
Need to be replaced at some point.
Exactly. So I think it's a question of pay me now or pay me later. At some point, these sidewalks do need to be replaced. And I think, you know, where you do have potential tripping hazards, there's liability to the town. If somebody trips and falls, you're aware of that issue. We had an opportunity to replace it. So I do think it's money well spent to address this issue now and pay the additional dollars, even though we may not like it. But I think you're going to find, as was attested to by Gerald, and I think, you know, Bill's got it working on a project now. When we go out to bid, you know, maybe by next year it'll be a little different, but certainly anything going out now, we're seeing increased costs for sure.
And what I wanted to get to was this isn't just cosmetic things you were looking and said, no, leave that in there. These are actually safety issues.
Well, we actually kept the cosmetic things in because, again, the whole point was doing streetscape enhancements, so you really can't do a beautification initiative and take out all the beautification initiatives, the elements that Stratfield Village Association raised dollars for. So we did take out what we could, but essentially was reducing the project scope to just the four corners.
Thank you.
The Stratfield Village Association is a very robust, involved, engaged group of people, and it's awesome. The money that they were on the hook for, were there conversations, and I'm not saying that we should be asking them for more, were the conversations, have they been involved in the conversations as the prices increased, and what's that relationship like? Could you just talk about that a little bit?
As Jamie can attest, I'm in conversation with the Stratfield Village Association probably on a weekly basis. We did have a conversation about whether there's a possibility to kick in some additional dollars, but realistically what we're talking about is fairly small potatoes in the grand scheme of things, and these are town facilities, assets that we really should be maintaining.
Which is kind of my point, sorry, son calling me from college. Why is it, and it's amazing that they are so involved, but how does it work that they kick in that money? Is that kind of an assumed thing?
Well, at first, I think it was instrumental in terms of our ability to secure the state grant. So we were able to show that not only was the town committed, but we were working actively with the neighborhood association. The neighborhood was supportive of the project, and they were willing to actually put their own money into this project. And I think that helped certainly make our case to the state to secure the $650,000 grant. So that was a commitment from day one. It hasn't altered. They've dutifully raised the money.
Yep.
They have the money, and
I just wanted to highlight that
Yes.
too, because I do think it's
Awesome job.
incredible partnership. So thank you for the work that community does. It's impressive.
It is.
Thank you. Is there, one last question on this, is there this has gone through bond counsel, I'm assuming, is Mr. Baldwin on? And the only changes are the ones that we talked about on these bonds? There's nothing else that's changed from the original bond?
The resolution.
Yeah, the resolution.
The resolution was done by bond counsel.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, and I agree on the work that everybody did towards making this a reality. It's been a long time unfortunate we're in the environment we are in. It's unfortunate that the state is requiring several $100,000 more, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
I just want to add that in order effort to save time, I do have copies of plans if you ever want to take a look at them. And then the other was the Board of Selectmen always has to approve the contract, so we're going to use an AIA contract. It was submitted just prior to the meeting, but earlier today you had a sample one. But it's the standard AIA form. We just had to have the contractor put it in because these are registered trademarks and the town just can't, mark one up. So the contractors do that. So when you vote, if you can approve the using of an AIA contract, that will save us from back.
I will defer to the town attorney on that. If he says that's okay.
And we would not obviously release it without checking with Jim as well, obviously.
Yeah, I think he's got I would say we need his opinion on that. I would like to see the designs, particularly if they've changed. I saw some that were done previously, but it sounds like things might have changed a little bit. So I'd like to see that. And the other item is, when would the work begin, assuming this would move forward through the town bodies?
Well, we could do small sections and get them started if they wanted to. The one good thing, if we were to approve the whole project or the original project, they could do some of the outlying sections which are not related to the core area and do them and button them up if we have a warm, November, December. The other part would then most likely start again in say, March maybe, where they could do some excavation and wait to pave in April or pave or concrete work in April or May.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. I think we've got a question for the town attorney.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah.
Jim, Mr. Hurley brought up something regarding adding contract language to item number 9. Is that a necessary thing to do now, or?
It would be my recommendation that the board do what it's done in the past, and that is to approve the contract subject to it being deemed appropriate by myself as the town attorney.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I know.
So,
Sorry, Jim.
Mr. Hurley explained that these AIA contracts are very standard, but they do need to be tweaked and certain items plugged in the various locations, and that's all that needs to be done here. And I have not taken a hard look at it since it just came to me 15 minutes before this meeting.
Right, so we should just approve item number 9.
Subject.
Is there some additional language you want to add to it?
it's not even on our agenda.
Oh, it's not on the agenda?
No, not the
Okay.
contract.
Is it?
No, just this item, the bond resolution. Or do we
Oh,
wait?
I'm sorry, I was...
Is the
I
item?
think you want to vote on, if you're ready, to vote on number 9, which was the change in the ARPA funding.
Correct.
And then you could continue with number 10 and talk if you want to have additional conversation
Is
about
that where
the
that contract language will come into
Yeah.
play?
That's
All right,
what we were
let's-
trying to ask.
All right,
Fine.
thanks, Bill.
Yep.
You screwed us up, so. All right, we're not. Okay. All right, so I'm going to open it up to the public for anyone who would like to speak on item number 9, because I see someone who's very involved.
Hi, for the record, I'm Jamie McCusker. I'm co-president of the Stratfield Village Association. First thing, I just wanted to thank everybody in the town for, as many people have already mentioned, it's been a long road to get to this point. And none of it could have been done without the support of Mark Barnard, Mr. Hurley, Brenda Kupchak, the Board of Selectmen, and our elected delegation here in Fairfield, which was instrumental in helping us get that $650,000 grant from the state. I can't tell you, how much this project means to the neighborhood and will mean to the neighborhood. When we talked to the neighborhood and when we restarted the SVA about 6 years ago, this was the #1 thing that everybody in the neighborhood was asking for. And we've had incredible support from the neighborhood throughout it. It's not like anybody is raising their hands and saying, we don't need this. We all agree that we need this as a neighborhood. It's going to mean a lot to the neighborhood. It's going to mean a lot to the businesses that are located in the neighborhood and the ability to attract businesses there and keep them there. It's going to mean a huge amount for our pedestrian and bike safety and auto safety. There are some very dicey aspects to that neighborhood or to that intersection if you haven't seen it already. There's large shoulders that are being used as a third lane, which are not driving lanes. There's the ability for people to drive, just circumvent the right turn going up Stratfield Road and cut across the parking lot in front of Mayone's in that area right there. It's not safe. And we're a residential neighborhood. And we've always prided ourselves on being a great place to raise a family and to be able to walk around and go to the park. And when you get to that neighborhood, it's a very dicey endeavor. So this is not just, don't get me wrong, we want and we need the beautification too. I don't think the town is really engaged in a major beautification project in our neck of the woods in at least the 20 years that I've been in the neighborhood. So we want the beautification, but it's also to make it much safer for all of us. And so I cannot, strongly enough ask that we move ahead with this. We were ready to play ball and cut down the scale if need be, but as Mark said, I feel like we need to go out and have a couple of drinks when this is all over to celebrate, because it's been a long road to get here, and we've talked with him a lot. It would be. We would go with it if we had to, because we don't want to put the town over the barrel financially. But the cost has been a moving target along the way, and so it's been hard for us as an organization to know how much we need to raise. We've done what we've been told and what we've been asked to in terms of raising funds, doing awareness, lobbying on the state level, all of that. And so we are as frustrated as the town is by the fact that this is coming in at the budget that it is. But these are bigger macro trends that are doing this. I don't hold anybody to blame for that. It is what it is. It's inflation. It's supply chain issues. It's all of that. But if we have the ability, especially with that ARPA funding and with a buffer zone even after we fund this still for the ARPA funding as other projects come in, I feel like this is somewhat of a now or never situation for us. We've been talking to the neighborhood about this for 5 years. There's a lot of people who are kind of like, I'll believe it when I see it at this point. And for us to try to piecemeal it and then go back and say, okay, we did that, now we need to do this, I think there's some fatigue and they're not gonna wanna do that. I feel like this is our one shot. So I, again, all that being said, want to thank you all for your support. It's been an education, and I'm hoping that we can all bring it home to fruition.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? I just want to thank you, actually, and Dylan, O'Connor, and everybody who's really dedicated yourselves for many, many years to this entire project and all the other things you're trying to do. So I applaud you, and I know government moves really slow sometimes. Really slow. Yeah, aren't they? They're great. I'm dealing with them on a bunch of things. It makes you want to pull your hair out of your head.
Can I add a personal note to that?
I just want to thank you, though, for your efforts and your hard work, and I'm looking forward to seeing this. It's going to be really amazing. And I'll open it up to the board.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to echo that because I do think it's a great example of community engagement. And I've followed along over the last many years and have friends who are active and engaged in the association. And I do think it's one great example of how the community, the town, the state, like when people come together, and I know it has been a long process, but I'm glad to be able to support this today for those efforts. So I think it's great. I do.
Well, if there's no further comment from the public or the board, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. First rung in the tri-party, in the triple header. Okay. All right, Bill, we're on the next item. Can I get a motion to hear and consider and authorize purchasing authority to enter into the proposed contract with Kelowna Concrete Asphalt Paving LLC to provide all labor, materials, equipment, and all necessary items to perform streetscape improvements within the Stratfield Village area as detailed in the bid 2023-04 in the amount not to exceed $1,725,620 with an additional authority to execute change orders to said contract in an amount not to exceed $172,562 for a combined grand total not to exceed $1,898,182. Authorization is contingent upon the allegation of additional funding for this project.
So moved. Do we need to add, there was just a deleted word. Does that matter?
What do you mean?
The word items is just missing, so I don't know if it's just a clerical.
Oh, I think I just added
You
that in
added it.
speaking.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly. So moved.
Second.
Okay.
And just for the record, there's just that one clerical word missing.
So I'm going to open it up. We have, obviously, Attorney Baldwin on the line and Bill Hurley here to answer any questions regarding the contract, and we have Gerald as well. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to ask for a friendly amendment to change this item from, instead of Stratfield Village area, to the Stratfield Village Business District. Do I have a motion to approve that amended change?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
And I think we also need to amend this. I'll look for some guidance from Mr. Baldwin, but we need to add some language to say that we would approve this subject to the review and approval of the town attorney. Is that right, Jim?
Yes, that's correct.
So I'll make a motion that we add to this, amend this, authorization is contingent upon the allocation of additional funding to the project and subject to review and approval of the town attorney.
So I'll second it. But the approval from the town attorney is just typical contract review?
That's correct.
Then, yeah, I have no
We
issues.
do, I think we have to vote on the amendment, Brenda.
Yeah, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're back to the main item as amended twice. Is there any questions or discussion from the board?
Not by me on this item.
Did Mr. Hurley, did you have additional things you wanted to add, or it was
You'll
all
work with
from-
the town attorney on those items? Very good. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Thank you to the organization for all your hard work.
Exciting.
Yeah. I do want to see him at some point, yeah.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Gerald. All right, our next item is we are going to hear a presentation from the Fairfield Forestry Committee on the Community Forest Management Plan and Tree Survey. And then we have an executive session after that.
Hello.
Welcome.
For the record, I'm Jeff Stedman. I'm an environmental planning consultant, but I'm not here tonight as a paid consultant. I'm here as a volunteer. I've been working with the Forestry Committee for a number of years, and the value of that is working with other people who are not looking for things for themselves, but looking to give to the community and to advance environmental stewardship. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And briefly, though, and it's a big screen, so please pardon any spelling mistakes that you see, including next slide. But the purpose of our presentation tonight is to provide information on the community forest and the forest management plan, but it's part of our efforts to inform the public and to try to encourage, and we have some honored guests here tonight, but we're going to talk with them at the end of the presentation. So to encourage the public and people who care about the town trees and the collectively known as the community forest. That's a term that we're going to use throughout this. And interestingly, well, you can read the screen, there are 270 miles of town roads and as many as 75,000 trees in the right-of-ways along those town roads. And then on other town properties, up to maybe 100,000 trees. So this is what we call the town trees on the town right-of-ways, along the roads, and on other town properties, parks and open space areas and the grounds of town buildings. So that's the community forest. And as, of course, we can all imagine, there are many agencies and officials and groups that have an interest in public trees. Well, your board, of course, the RTM, the tree warden, the DPW, we can go down through the list. And then on the right-hand column, you see utility companies. And of course, they have an interest that we'll talk about in a little while. And as well as conservation organizations and neighborhood groups and just individual town residents. So that's the institutional framework that all of the agencies and people that have an interest and a responsibility. And what I should have mentioned, Ms. Hogue, who's the chair of the Forestry Committee. I'm so sorry, Mary.
She needs no introduction.
So please correct me when I misspeak. Next slide. And the tree warden, who has the statutory responsibility for the care and control of all public trees. And I believe the office of the tree warden in Fairfield dates back to the 1940s. So there's a long history in town of being a steward of the town trees. And the tree warden, as you know, and as others may, functions through the DPW, which provides personnel and equipment that enables the town's, what we call the Community Forest Management Program, to maintain and preserve and enhance the public trees. But the first priority, and we've emphasized this throughout, is public safety and identifying and dealing with what the tree warden may deem to be hazardous trees. And the tree warden has, well, appointed by this board, but has significant authorities that are established in the state statutes. The next one, please. Now, the Forestry Committee, it's not a committee established by ordinance or by state statute. It was appointed by the Selectmen back in 2006, which is before the terms of your distinguished terms. And the mission of the committee, again, a voluntary committee, and it was appointed at the recommendation or the request of the tree warden at the time. To have some assistance and guidance and help in managing the tree planting program and other initiatives. But the committee's mission is to encourage stewardship, but also to provide assistance to the tree warden as may be necessary. The next slide, please. And of course, the many benefits of trees and of the community forest, from scenic and wildlife habitat values and helping to absorb pollution, reduce erosion, but there's economic and cultural values as well. The trees add to the values of properties and the historical sense of, historical values of trees in Fairfield are, of course, quite significant. The next slide, please. These historic and cultural values, that image on the right from the Burr Homestead, I've always enjoyed that. That was a photograph taken by Mabel Osgood Wright using a glass plate negative back at the end of the 18th. I don't know that photography process very well, but it was hand painted afterwards to add the color to it. But the point is that the place of trees in Fairfield and their place in history is quite substantial. And you know, out front of the old town hall is a descendant of the original charter oak. And of course, the arboretum at the Burr Homestead has much historical significance. So I think that was important. We wanted to emphasize. And Fairfield it's programs to manage public trees. In 1983, the town was the first town in Connecticut to be designated recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation. And so for the past 31 years, it's received that recognition. The years don't add up from 1983. There was one year that was a glitch that the award wasn't given. We're not quite sure why that was, but every year since 1983 except for one. So the Tree City USA, that reflects, again, the history of the town in caring and managing public trees. The next slide, please. Now, the Community Forest Management Plan that the tree warden and the committee prepared, that was endorsed by the Board of Selectmen back in 2014. But it's not a formal municipal plan that was adopted by the RTM or prepared pursuant to a state statute that requires approval. It was meant to be a guidance document that again, not a binding document, but it also established what we call the vision, the community forest vision for future maintenance and enhancement of the community forest. And there's also a number of recommendations in there, again, advisory and guidance recommendations for how different town agencies could contribute to stewardship of the community forest. So please. So our vision, the vision that's put forth in the plan, and it's on the website, but these are just the basic goals, and the first priority, the first two priorities, again, public safety and welfare, and that the town continues an active, ongoing role to manage the forest. And then all of the other goals of natural resource conservation and enhancing town recreation areas and the cultural enrichment, environmental stewardship, encouraging public interest and support, and those are all part of the vision, and they're expanded on in the document. And also there are recommended projects for advancing those goals. So that next one. The tree planting program, Mr. Carell is here tonight, and he certainly can talk about this, but this is the program where when trees have to be removed from the town right-of-ways, there's an opportunity where the adjoining property owners can purchase a tree, and the town will plant it in front of those properties to replace the lost trees. And I think, Tom, I think you said this, Tom, 1,000 trees have been planted over the past 5 years at the request of property owners, but it's still more needs to be done to keep up with the loss of some of the trees in the right-of-ways. And this leads to the saying that you've probably heard, the right tree in the right place. So when someone requests a tree to be planted near their homes, there's an assessment that's done by the Forestry Committee and by the tree warden to make sure that tree is appropriate to the location. And the pollinator pathway, this follows a resolution that you approved last year, and the Forestry Committee has the lead role in advancing the pollinator pathway goals, and of course that's to encourage and to achieve corridors of native plants that are pesticide-free to enable the pollinators, the bees, the butterflies, and the hummingbirds to thrive. Oh.
That is the co-director.
Oh. I'm sorry I haven't acknowledged the committee members. So again, please. And the wayside exhibit signs, which we're quite proud of. There are 6 of them that we've installed, 3 on the ground, on the town green grounds, and 3 downtown. And these, again, are intended to increase public awareness and to provide information to the public. And we've prepared some summary documents explaining each of these, each of the signs, or, well, I guess it's proper to call them wayside signs or interpretive panels, but we hope to also to be able to place some more in appropriate locations. The commemorative tree program is another program where the committee assists the tree warden with this, keeps the records, where people can purchase a tree for a loved one or a special event, would be planted by the town and maintained by the town, and there'll be a permanent record of it recognized by the town of Fairfield in terms of the loved one or the event that tree commemorates. Now, thinking ahead of initiatives that the committee is working on, we're working on, I say the committee with, I'm privileged to be able to help, updating the community forest management plan, hopefully by the spring of next year, continuing public outreach and education, the planting and commemorative tree program that we talked about, the pollinator pathways. And we haven't talked a lot, and we should probably add some more to this presentation about oversight of the utility companies' tree trimming and removal program. And this is, certainly I couldn't do this job, but the difficult job by the tree warden to balance the need for storm resiliency and the protection of the living resources in the town and the tree canopy and the benefits that trees provide. But the removal of those trees requires approval from the tree warden in the town right-of-ways. And then another initiative that we want to proceed, and we started to do this several years ago, but the POCD update was delayed a bit. So we want to, again, the forest management plan is a guidance document, but implementation of it could be strengthened if provisions from the plan are included in the POCD and other town plans. So the committee is working on input to those other agencies.
Good.
And we also put together an online questionnaire. And we didn't include all of the questions here, just a few of them. We had 345 responses. So we were asking people to sort of assessing the respondents' knowledge about trees and which tree-related issues are important to people. And many people also provided their own comments at the end, wrote into the survey with all thoughtful comments. And we're preparing those for the town website now. But I thought it would be useful just to show a couple of the examples. Maybe the next slide, please. You know, how important are each of the following tree-related functions and benefits? And the colors are a little off, but you see at the top, absorbing pollution, improving air quality, stabilizing the soil, reducing erosion, habitat for birds and wildlife. Those are the top 3 benefits that people talked about, above increasing property values down at the bottom. But I thought that was interesting. Almost all of the respondents recognized those environmental values of trees. And then, as you might expect, what are the tree-related issues or problems that people are most concerned with? And that has to do with storm-related hazardous trees and debris removal after storms and conflicts with utilities. So I thought, but we've prepared a summary of all the responses to all of the questions that will be on the town website. And then, of course, the committee meets on the 3rd Tuesday, and we invite everyone who has an interest to participate. They're remote meetings now. And I have one more slide, if you don't mind.
There, go ahead.
Well, besides the acknowledgement slide, and And that tree there, the Copper Beech, of course, is nearby. And I have to find the book where the Fairfield author years ago referred to the Copper Beech trees as Hercules of the forest for obvious reasons, for the strength of the trunk and the root system. But you see the list of the people who were the residents and concerned residents who volunteered their time to participate in this environmental stewardship initiative. And I think the next slide is the last slide. And this is what we're all about here, pursuing environmental stewardship. And if you pardon me, I'd just like to read that 1907 quote at the bottom. Forestry has this in it, that it gives even more to the future than it does to the present. It is typical of what we are all anxious to do, typical of the kind of life that looks to what we shall leave for our children in the way of resources than what we should use up and enjoy ourselves. And I thought that was going back 115 years. That quote is, I think, very valuable today, or appropriate today. But you see, there's a person in these photos who's here today, and might want to say just a few words to the board.
Our local Lorax, he's actually in the paper as the local Lorax. Ryan Romeo. Yes.
Hi.
It's good to see you again.
You too. So, my name's Ryan Romeo, and my goal is to try to get kids and adults to sorry, I'm just like
It's okay, take your time.
Been a long day.
Happens to us all the time.
My goal is to basically get kids and adults to acknowledge the dangers of climate change and learn about ways to help, like planting trees and tons of other stuff, like cleaning oceans, picking up trash. And that's basically all I really have to say.
Well, thank you. It's good to see you, and I know you're very passionate about this issue, and you do a lot of good work.
So Ryan has presented to our Conservation Commission, Trumbull Conservation Commission, Stratford Conservation Commission, and he does road shows. So he's got a wonderful PowerPoint presentation. One of the pictures in the slide, he went to Trumbull in the 5th grade and handed out saplings.
Oh, that, yes.
So thank you, Jeff, for that. So he is a wonderful ambassador and environmental steward, and really impressive. So he really is the local Lorax, and so thank you, Ryan. And before I forget, I just really want to introduce some wonderful people in the audience, because this is a team effort. And of course, there's our tree warden. We love, and we are his minions. There's Jeff Minder. Our tree planting program extraordinaire, Tom Carell. And under his leadership, we have been able to not only plant all these trees, but we go out and evaluate all these trees. And we have been in an international, I think 2 international papers, because we work with Sacred Heart computer science people, and they're so wowed by our data. So it's really impressive what we're able to do with Tom's leadership. He is the boss, right? Right, Jeff? And then Ted Luxinger is our co-director with Amanda and Gracia for our pollinator pathway. And the reason the pollinator pathway is under forestry is that, do you want to say it about the oaks? that if you plant a tree, it's the best pollinator food source.
It's a keystone, keystone species, so it supports hundreds of different types of.
Yeah. You have to stand up here if you want to be heard, but yeah, you want to be up here talking if you want to be heard. But trees are the reason that you really.
I think.
You got to stand right here.
You got to stand right here. All right. So pollinator pathway, it's all about diversity and diversity in our ecosystem. And the scary thing to me right now is when I walk around Lake Mohegan, and I see the commemorative trees that we've just planted. Right behind them are burning bush, which is an invasive species that's taking over our open spaces. And this has become my personal passion project, is to try and enlarge our efforts around maintaining the forestry of native plants and stopping the invasives, because the invasives are taking over. We have not looked at them for about 30 years. And between Japanese barberry, burning bush, bittersweet, it's everywhere. But you know, the other thing that I'm very happy about is we're doing a lot of good work with public-private partnerships. So Pond Leader Pathways working with Native, working with several of the nurseries in town.
All of our nurseries.
All of our nurseries in town, as well as some of our local landscape partners that are doing all non-gasoline-based landscaping, you know, trying to promote as much diversity as we possibly can. Yeah.
Well, I would, as a pollinator pathway member, I just want to say for the record, we got more emails about the pollinator pathway than we got about the budget or any single project going on in this town. So it's definitely a big hit, and it's something very important to our community. And you should be, obviously, I would imagine you're working with our conservation director on the invasives.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's actually been talked to me about those.
They started the Friends of Lake Mohegan group. It's the first Friends of Open Space. Friends of Open Space Lake. Sorry, I don't mean to get in your face,
That's
but so and you're doing a talk when?
Tomorrow. We're doing a talk tomorrow night at the Fairfield Woods Library, Leave the Leaves, to encourage people to not necessarily use blowers and get rid of all the leaves, but allow the caterpillars and the critters to gestate over the winter, so there's more things for the birds to eat in the spring. So it's, you know, it's all connected, and I think people are beginning to realize that.
You're saying we shouldn't blow the leaves away?
Yes.
From there? Okay.
I'm saying you shouldn't blow the leaves away. An interim step is you can shred the leaves with a lawnmower if you want to create mulch.
Mary's like, no.
You're kidding.
Well, you don't, it's an interim step. If you're not going to, there's a
Okay.
level of
We'll leave 'em
evangelism.
be.
that
We're
you
having a
have to be
forestry
careful.
fight right here.
Exactly.
Chopping them up.
All right, well, time out.
We're going to have you guys go up against a shellfish commission.
Can I make a couple comments? I want to thank Ryan because it's awesome. I mean, talk about the legacy that we leave. I mean, you're it, so thank you. And also a shout out for the town tree planting. I am a customer. Look forward to being a customer again. It is a great thing, and Tom had given me that. This is not about necessarily what you're enjoying, but the future, and that felt really nice. And just the public-private partnership, I think, if you haven't thought about it, which I'm sure you have, around graduations. I didn't know that you're doing that commemorative, but that's like a great gift to give somebody as they're on their way, perhaps someplace else, a commemorative tree. So I put that in your brains.
Yeah.
And thank you for everything you do. It's fantastic.
So as someone just back from a weekend in Vermont, I can appreciate the beauty of the trees, and thank you for all the work that you do. I think one thing to highlight isn't just the beauty of the trees, but the work that needs to be done relative to working with the utility companies and with the police commission, I would imagine, or at least the police department, as to safety issues around our roads and our utility lines with the trees. I think that's the thing that the public only sees it when it's a problem, right? And I think if they knew a bit more about what's done to manage that, that'd be very helpful and a good story to tell, and not waiting for the next storm, to tell it. But you guys have done a lot of great work. I think there's more to be done. So, best of luck with it, and I would leave you with those thoughts. And I'll see you at the ice rink, Mr. Mint.
And I just want to give a shout out to our tree warden, Jeff Minder, who I know works very closely with you and puts a lot of time and effort, and not in just with your work, but negotiating with the utilities and with the forestry committee to make sure that we are providing a safety situation for our residents, obviously, not to be hit by a tree or to have their power knocked out. So I think it's been it's been a good relationship because we didn't, when I came in, as you know, we didn't have a great relationship with UI, and we got them in a room and we hammered out a discussion, and from henceforth, I was just actually out in the truck with Mr. Minder last Friday, right, Mr. Minder? Looking at all the trees that the state cut down and exposing people's yards. So, we had a discussion about how different and the relationship has been, and he was updating me while we were driving around how much better his relationship is with UI. Before, they weren't even listening to us regarding tree trimming and things. So I think it's been a much better partnership, and obviously his work with the Forestry Committee is very beneficial to you as well. So I just want to shout out for you, Mr. Minder, because I know you're doing a good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Stedman, for your presentation.
I think the committee will be back before you in the spring, perhaps, when we have the draft of the updated plan. So look forward to that, too.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your efforts and your dedication to this. All right. Because we have executive session, so we don't really adjourn. We go into, oh, Jerry, what were you saying? We had a...
There is a line about other business that I just wanted to...
Right, but then you said something about a few minutes we need.
Yeah, I need a little time after you go into executive session to shut down before you begin your executive.
And then you can't be on after or
I'll be
something?
on.
Okay, because you have another meeting. Okay, all right.
We'll put the remainder in with the WebEx portion in the published meeting.
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, no, item number 12, to hear, consider, and act upon any other business that shall become before the meeting.
Yeah, can I raise?
Sure.
Sure. Everyone may not be aware, and I just we got a couple of emails, and I've gotten some inquiries about the ballot and the 2 questions. It's not just the charter that's on the ballot, so I was hoping we could have a discussion about those questions, and if it's not today, perhaps it could be on the agenda for the 7th, which is the day before the election. But I just think it's important for the public to hear through this forum what the 2 questions are going to be and the implications of yes or no.
So, well, I know the state has a question, and I know that there's been, the League of Women Voters and other groups have been discussing that constitutional amendment. And I have put, I think, I put links in my newsletter for people to learn more about that. Regarding charter, I mean, I did send out an updated charter to our Community of Special Charter newsletter, and the newsletter does have over 26,000 subscribers, and it carefully laid out 28 charter revision meetings, a total of 37 public meetings. Our meeting on the question ballot, I think, was an over 4-hour Board of Selectmen meeting. The Board of Selectmen held a lot of joint meetings with the Charter Revision Commission that were very long and detailed and discussing a whole host of things. I have tried extraordinarily hard. I think in over 30 newsletters have shared information with our community, how to link to their site, watch all the meetings, and get up to speed about all of the different work that the commission did, how it came to its conclusions and recommendations, and all of the meetings, literally 37 meetings. And I actually had a conversation with one of the people who did email us, and I asked that person who wanted us to have this discussion here at the table, had they watched all the 37 meetings? And they admitted they hadn't. And so I explained that, you know, while I like to think we're very popular, I don't think a whole lot of people watch our Board of Selectmen meeting. And if people aren't willing to watch the 37 meetings that happened that are very easily linked, I'm not sure how engaged they're going to be to this meeting, which I could, again, boost out, and people could not watch that. But we've had a year-long discussion on the charter, long discussions, and and anyone who wanted to engage in those discussions had the opportunity to do so. I can't imagine this has been the most open and transparent process. Every bit of information has been posted. Anybody who wants to know about what the charter was before, what the charter is now going to be if proposed passes on the ballot, the changes, all of it, the information, the backup, the links to the meetings to hear the discussions from public policy people, public administration people. I mean, I'm not really sure what the benefit is to discuss something that's already completed. It's up to the voters at this point.
And I think
to educate themselves, to take the opportunity to, as the explanatory text has been approved by the RTM and written. I actually brought copies of it.
to be clear, I don't think the RTM voted on the actual text. They voted on
They
the
voted
town clerk.
to approve. And
Yeah,
she
to approve the
wrote
process.
the
Yep.
two-page explanatory text, which is on the town's website, which I did share to our large group of residents who sign up to the newsletter. Put it in the public libraries, senior center, any location where people can have an opportunity to read it.
Yep.
And I think at this point, it's up to the voters to, and they have full opportunity to read and listen to meetings. I know it's boring to sit and listen to 37 meetings over a period of a year, but it's for anybody who wants to be included or wants to understand more about what the changes were, how they were discussed, and what they're going to be, and how the town would benefit, in my opinion, from updates. But if they didn't want to, we would revert back to, and that's linked as well, our prior charter that hasn't been fully updated since the 1970s. I think that people have those opportunities at this point, and I think I don't know what else you can do to possibly get people to engage in something.
If I may, a couple things. The first, the state charter, or I'm sorry, the state ballot initiative is about early voting. Connecticut is one of 4 states in the country that doesn't have it, just as a point of information. The concern I have at this point, and for anyone that would want to watch the 37 meetings or whatever hours, which I think is an unrealistic and unfair expectation of the public, the general voter. But they would see that I was not shy at the end, or all along, first of all, with challenging and questioning and really dedicating time and energy on what the result would be. They would also see that I was not shy in not voting for it in the end. And I think the point now is we do have an opportunity to educate voters. I also was concerned about the nature of how the charter, how the ballot question appears, because I think for some, including myself, I think it's misleading if you don't believe that those things are true, that if you don't believe that it is a more modern approach. Or for me personally, not believing in just having it come down to a single question. And I think that there was some concern about what a no vote would be. So to me, the point of having this conversation is now for the public to understand that a no vote doesn't throw away the hard work. It just brings it back to a process. So I guess I'll state for the record that for anyone that wants to engage on why I voted no, I'm happy to synthesize that response, and we'll do so in the public forum that is afforded to me if it's not here. But I think it's important that we do clarify that while the Board of Selectmen did approve to send it forward, it was not a unanimous vote. And again, I'm happy to review and will share in any opportunity that is afforded to me to explain why. It is of utmost concern and importance because it is a once-in-a-decade opportunity. So I do hope that people will take time, and not to necessarily watch the 40 million hours that we all sat here and debated and discussed, because I don't know that that's the best use of someone's time at this point.
No, and I agree. And again, I sent these links out every week, every newsletter, so that people could not have to sit through 37 meetings at the end, but anyone who wanted or was engaged or interested in the process had an opportunity to do so. And I think I tried very hard to make this process a democratic process where you could have your questions answered, that the whole board would have an opportunity to engage. I know that, you had spent quite a bit of time with the town attorney, at your home even. I asked, I thought our last meeting would be a working meeting where everyone would come together and put input and do, pull apart and do the work. So again, I tried. I'm sorry you didn't feel comfortable voting for it. But at the end of the day, I just want people to know personally that, this gentleman I spoke to about this, who had asked, what will happen if we vote against it? Will you start another commission? And I was like, probably not. Because frankly, that process was horrendous.
Don't we have to?
No, we don't have to. I have to put one on a commission, and frankly, this year process has been just exhaustive. Evidenced by the fact that the charter lawyer we hired, who's done this all across the state, said to me, has never seen anything quite like this. And he has done this all across the state. And frankly, our department heads, everyone, we're all busy, the town attorney. We're working really hard every day to run a town of over 62,000 people. And that process took a lot of effort and time. And I can't imagine anybody would want to sign up for it. I read somewhere where someone said we had 3 years to do it. I don't know why anyone thinks people have time to donate 3 years of their time to a process that other towns don't spend that long on. I think the changes are good. I said this the other day. I did not get everything in the charter that I wanted. I wanted a lot of more modernization in that charter than ended up coming out of it. But like with anything in government, I served 9 years in the legislature. There were bills that I voted on that I didn't like everything in, but I liked most of. So I think I encourage you to do your whatever due diligence you want. If you want to share with the community why you didn't like it, you think people should vote against it, that's your right as an individual to do that.
Yep.
I think it is a good thing. I think a lot of people put a lot of effort into it. The library board of trustees, all the department heads, people who have to live under this thing every single day have asked for updates so that our government could run more efficiently. And listen, there's always going to be people who don't agree, and that's their right. This is a democracy, and so I think we've talked about this thing for a year. And I think now it's up to the voters, and that they should do their due diligence to educate themselves, to find out whatever they want to know. I'm open to answering any questions. Anybody wants to email or call me, as well, you can do the same. Mr. Flynn can do the same.
I wholeheartedly agree with that, by the way. If the public decides one way or the other, I just encourage everybody to do the work so that when they are making a vote, it's informed.
I agree.
It's thoughtful. They've made a decision based on whether they believe that my point of view is one that aligns with their thinking, or whether it's not, whatever it is, but that the vote is that they're taking should be taken really seriously. And if I could, with Attorney Baldwin, it would be great if we could. We have one more meeting before the election, or even just in written form, what does actually happen, if he could confirm, because I thought we were required to have a revision. Or that we had to look at it and have something. Does it just pass and then it sits dormant for 10 years if you decide not to?
I think in the charter revision proposal, it did say we would review, Attorney Baldwin, that the Board of Selectmen would discuss
Let Jim answer.
something. Wasn't there something in the new charter revision, not in the current charter?
Yeah, if the question is, under the current charter, is there an obligation to create another commission should this proposed charter revision not pass by referendum in this November's election? The answer is no. There's no requirement that happen. But one of the substantive changes in the new proposed charter is that there be an obligation to review the possible need for any charter reform within a minimum of 10-year span since the last such review.
So Jim, it's not that there were any changes that trigger anything. It's the fact that the review actually took place. Whether the recommendations coming out of the review pass or fail, the review has taken place, therefore satisfying the requirement.
Yes, that's correct. It passes or it fails, and that's the end of the book, not just the chapter.
Right.
In this particular charter review process.
Right.
Unless the administration or subsequent administrations chose to do otherwise, correct?
Yes.
There is that discretion.
The
Okay.
Board of Select persons put together another charter review commission.
And if I might, first of all, thanks to the administration for putting together the first major charter review in 40-odd years or so. That was, I actually wasn't aware originally that it had been that long a period of time, and that's a daunting task. And thanks to that committee for that work to do. I think what we saw as a community is that government can be messy. It can be sloppy. It can be argumentative at times. There can be disagreements. There can be emotions. There can be, it's the old adage of watching the sausage being made and looking at how the charter was, that process was certainly messy. And I'm one of those people that probably believes that that's a good thing, that there's good that comes out of that, and there's goods out of a difference of opinion. The other thing that comes out of that is compromise. And there was a lot of compromise that came out of that charter review. Some people wanted larger changes. Some people wanted smaller, more incremental changes. And certainly some people wanted no changes at all. So I think that we reached a compromise state. And quite frankly, that leads me to a slogan that I learned long ago, which is don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And so is the charter perfect? No, it's not perfect now. It's served us pretty well, but it's far from perfect. Is it going to be perfect after the revision? Certainly not in my mind is it going to be perfect. Is it going to be improved? Is it going to be better? Is it going to be good? Yes, that's my opinion. But I think we can all agree that what we've had has been okay. I think what we are going to have will be better. I hope we have it. And the other thing is it can be changed. The 10 years should be, under the new charter, if it gets passed, the outside date for a charter revision. But most assuredly, if we find something in the current revision that isn't appropriate, that isn't working, that's not right, we can call for a commission, or our successors can call for a commission and specifically say, look at this item and fix it. And that, to me, is a great safe gap to this. So thanks for all the effort on it, to everybody. And we'll see what the voters have to say.
Well, that's a good point, because I know that when First Selectman Flato opened it up in '06, he had asked for specific things to be reviewed in the charter. He didn't say open the whole charter, look at the whole charter. And, I think that if this does pass, and I do hope it does, that the board will have the opportunity to say, oh, this isn't working, similar to when you had said years ago, don't change the terms of Board of Ed, you're going to have a problem. No one listened to us. But hopefully the fix that we put in there will address that. Because then they became sort of lack competition in the races. But again, I think it's a living document that can be updated for many years to come, and specific items can be addressed as you live it and see how it works.
Thank you for bringing it up, Nancy.
Do you have anything further?
No, just to echo, just about the voter doing their homework. I mean, that's it.
And to be
Both
honest,
here.
I don't know if it would be helpful for us, maybe in this format, maybe the League of Women Voters, they're having a debate, right, I think, tomorrow night. We'll be discussing the constitutional question at least during that meeting, because it is a state issue. Hopefully, they'll have that discussion. I'm not sure we're the proper authority to have it, because we probably have different opinion.
No, we clearly do. We do, as evidence in all those meetings, and that's fine.
No, I
As
mean
said, I just want-
the early voting, the constitutional question.
Oh, okay.
The state.
I mean,
the state,
again, fair.
question. I think we probably have a different opinion on that, too. But that's okay. But I think that would be more appropriate for the state or the league to kind of give people like an idea of what that means. The constitutional question, what it means to do it and what it
Yes.
means to not.
Fair, but again, echoing just that sentiment of people doing the homework, especially
yeah.
because it is something that people will fall on different sides of the issue.
Absolutely. All right, well, is there anything else?
No, I think motion to go into executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, as well.